Hello and welcome to Gardening Australia. The temperature might be dropping, but things are really heating up as we pile on the inspiration, the garden know-how, and the happiness. Here's what's coming up.
I'm visiting a steep south-facing home garden that's so shady that parts of it see no sun over most of winter. And yet the owners manage to produce food year-round.
Sweeter.
I'm getting essence of strawberry as well.
Oh, no!
If you want some spectacular winter colour in your garden and you want something that's easy to care for and looks good in a vase, I'm going to show you an iconic ancient family of plants.
I'm getting a masterclass on cactus grafting.
What I do is fairly important is to squeeze it down, try and keep the pressure even.
And cooler months in the garden are such a beautiful time for observation, contemplation, and for getting things done. And I've got stacks to do.
If you love Clivias, then there's a guy you'll want to meet.
326, there's 4 flowers.
He's made a name for himself breeding unique hybrids that are in demand around the country.
And you want to do the reverse cross. And WY1.
I've come to meet the gentle gardening giant, Peter Hay. They call him the king of the Clivias because of the extraordinary things he's achieved with these stunning plants. I've met Peter before at plant shows, but this is my first visit to his self-designed and built Clivia nursery in Wedderburn, south of Sydney. And look who I find pottering around. Peter.
G'day, Costa. Good to see you, mate.
Fantastic. So this is your plant cave.
Made with blood, sweat and tears.
Now, the big question.
Yep.
Clivias.
No, it's Clivias.
Really?
Yeah, Clive's named after Lady Clive, the Duchess of Northumberland.
Ah, all right.
I don't think it matters because you know what you're talking about. I know what I'm talking about. It's a plant that we both know and love.
Oh, well, can we go and meet the family?
Absolutely, come on.
Clivias are long established in Australia, but you'll never have seen varieties quite like these. Look at this, your playground.
What do you reckon, mate?
Oh.
Pretty good.
Oh, there's so much to see here. I don't know where to start. Is that a green Clivia?
That surely is.
You're kidding. It's ground zero of an exceptional plant breeding enterprise. And being the king means Peter gets to choose favourites. So, Peter, I believe each year you pick the one. What's that all about?
OK, what I'm looking for is the most outstanding plant of the year, something that has punch, something that has the best breeding potential. For instance, it's a multi-petal. I think it's going to be the one this year. It's the first one where I've got a versicolour, or a picotee, where you've got a light centre with splashes around the outside. The one.
The one.
There's another one over here too. I can't help it. I'm sorry, John Costa. This is, I love it, mate. It's music to my ears.
He's on fire.
No, come on, have a look. Have a look at this. This is really good.
So many of Peter's plants are brand new developments. In full bloom, there's not much can touch them. And he's also working on dwarf varieties as houseplants. Question is, why Clivias? I mean, they're often seen as just a bit of a filler in a troublesome, shady area, but why did you just embrace them so much?
Hardy. I think I learnt that in my landscape days. You can't kill them. You could slash them with a tractor. They'll come back up again. Frost will burn them off. The sun will burn them off. They'll keep on coming back. They're low maintenance and they're tough. I'll show you some more down here.
You're like a mad professor. What are you doing all this for?
Well, I've had a dream. It's always been a dream since the early days of producing something for Australian horticulture, something unique.
So what are the key elements you're looking for?
Engine room, number one. We've got to have a V8 to power it because it takes lots of power to produce the pigments. Then we want the flower high and centrally positioned. I'm looking for thicker, waxier petals. Now, just reach and feel that. Just feel the texture of those petals.
Oh, yeah, they're solid.
That's it. The grandmother plant from this, it had thick petals. And I thought, maybe that's something we can bring in, we can inherit, and there it is.
So you're just constantly crossing and working and watching what's going on and...
No, not necessarily, because what we have to do is if we keep on crossing back with the same material, we bring in errors as well as the good points. So what we have to do is bring in hybrid vigour. So we're running parallels. So if we bring in two lines and we join them together, and then that sort of gives us the genetic strength.
So where does your breeding plan start?
I think it's important to consider what the objective is. What I like about this is you can see the green tips to it. I'd love for this to inherit that mark.
You're pollinating the plant.
Doing the jobs of the birds or the bees. Do you want to have a go with this? I'll show you how it's done. The first thing we've got to do is we've got to write up the berry parent. So this is the pedigree. This is what it's all about.
Oh, look at that. That's an authentic pollination book. Oh, I like that.
Okay, VT23, number 1. And in this case, it's going to be 14-80. So identify the flower we're going to pollinate. And this one's receptive, so they're nice and bright. You can see how they're nice and light and fluffy.
Yeah.
So we need fresh pollen from here.
Oh.
Okay, that's not easy to do. I want you to dab, 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 dab. 5,000 or 6,000 pollen grains, possibly more.
Wow.
Lots. Yeah, that's the guy there.
Oh, I just got some in my mouth there as I start. Yeah, look, it's all floating. That's amazing.
Give it to me. Thanks, mate. I walk it like an insect has picked up the pollen on the flower and I dab.
Oh, just...
Dab, 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 dab. You can see it. See it fluffing around the place?
It's going everywhere.
Okay, done. Then we go to the next one.
Successful pollination results in the plant producing large berries, which are spectacular themselves. The seeds inside require gentle handling. Peter's secret recipe for successful germination is a warm, protected spot on top of damp sphagnum moss and a little phosphoric acid.
The plant tag.
Oh, look at that.
Look at the babies.
Yeah.
You can see how the roots are starting to go down. These were planted in here about 3 to 4 weeks ago, so they're already germinating.
So from the time of cross-pollinating to something that's going to go out to be bought by someone, what sort of time are you talking?
4 years.
Minimum. Like, that's a tough business model. And how many hybrids have you been working on and generating?
Oh, cost to probably do between 40 and 150 crosses a year.
Yeah.
Have a look at this. Let's see what I mean. Would you grab the top of the table where the...
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, the top, no, just the top board.
Oh, the top, yeah.
And lift it up high, higher, 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 higher.
Whoa!
What do you reckon?
What is all that?
That's some of the work I've done, but it doesn't represent all the work I've done.
Really? God, I'm tired just looking at all those.
You're tired. What about me, mate?
The variety. I need a cuppa to digest all this. Where has all this effort come from? What got you into gardening?
I think it came from when I was a toddler at home. Mum, in her spare time, was always in the garden. She loved it. She had a good eye for colour and form and shape, and I basically remember a double-headed Iceland poppy. And I think I might have picked it and shown Mum, and she may not have been impressed. I might have been the only one in the garden, and she's going, a double-headed Iceland poppy, and my beautiful 3-year-old son said, oh, look at this, Mummy, isn't this interesting? I suppose that was the start of it.
How did Clivias come along?
I left my 15-year employment to start a landscape contracting business with my brother. Clivias were part of it because it was something that we could put into dry shade. It's just that splash of colour. Time went by, and in 2005, I had a stroke.
Really?
Yeah, CVA.
Oh.
But the problem with a stroke is that it's not a heart attack, it's a brain attack. And the brain gets damaged. Everything slows down, your speech, your thought, your mobility. And so there's a sense of hopelessness. You know, it was profound, I remember it. And then part of the healing process is to get your brain back into gear. I think to give myself some hope at that stage, and I had an interest in Clivias, and I thought, I wonder if I can develop something new, and I thought, I'll go for some new colours. And so the project was born.
What is it about the therapy of horticulture that's been a part of your world?
It's the physiological sense of feeling good when I come out here. That's to do with a bacteria called Mycobacterium vaccae. It emits a gas that stimulates our serotonin, and the serotonin fires up the endorphins, and the endorphins are our addictive area. So it's not sex, it's not drugs, it's not rock and roll, it's not gambling, it's gardening.
It's gardening.
Or we're overloaded with goodies, mate.
You are a rock star.
I don't know about that.
It's hard to imagine a more remarkable road to recovery than Peter's devotion to the propagation of Clivias. The natural genetics of this plant are truly his artist's palette. Thanks for teaching me so much about Clivias. I feel like you've lifted the guilt I've carried about ripping so many of them out over the years.
That's my pleasure, Costa. Well, you can't go yet.
What do you mean?
We've got some really interesting stuff to have a look at over in that shed.
Really? Oh, wow. We're going to need a part 2. Pete, show me round. Look at the leaves on this thing.
That's Ligularia.
Ligularia, exactly.
Yeah, beautiful, isn't it?
We'll be back later with plants rare and unusual, as well as Peter's special technique for grafting cacti.
How can I tell when my apples are ripe? There are several ways, such as the noise it makes. Tap an apple, and if it sounds hollow, it'll be ripe. Another way is to use the tip of your thumb and press it into the flesh. If the skin pops, it's ready to eat. And for the taste test, ripe apples are sweet with a light and crisp texture.
Why do beets taste earthy? I love my beets, and I enjoy their earthy flavour, which is caused by a substance called geosmin. It's the same compound that's produced by bacteria in the soil. You know, after rain, you get that lovely earthy scent, which we call petrichor. It's the same thing. Now, apparently some people are more sensitive to geosmin than others. If that sounds like you, then try growing salad beets, which are more subtle. They contain less geosmin, so they're less earthy.
What is sorrel? Well, you might have read about sorrel in some French cookbooks. Indeed, this is called French sorrel, and it's an evergreen perennial. Gets into a lovely clump about that size, and you can use the leaves in salads or use as silver beet or in soups. French sorrel soup is absolutely delicious, I swear by it. And this is called the red vein sorrel. If you have a look at the back of the leaves, they really are just gorgeous. And again, you could use it just like spinach or fresh into a salad. They're easy to grow, one of the best little herbs that you'll be able to buy.
If your garden has some shady spots, it can be tricky to know how best to utilise those areas. But with the right plant choices, the right know-how and a bit of planning, you can turn those spaces into valuable real estate for productive food growing. Hannah's here to show us how you can have it made in the shade.
I'm visiting a home garden so shady that parts of it see no sun for most of winter. So you wouldn't expect to see much growing at this time of the year. But some super smart planting from the owners makes sure they have something to harvest no matter what the season.
When we first looked at this place, it was actually this beautiful manicured backyard with this incredible orchard. There was raspberries to eat. It was amazing. We actually fell in love with the garden before we'd even looked in the house.
And it was summer. It was a little bit warmer than this.
It was 9 years ago when Lisa and Anthony first laid eyes on their South Hobart garden with its 1,200 square metre steep, south-facing block. They knew immediately that it would present some interesting challenges.
Gets up to about 45, even 60 degrees in places. We were really fortunate that the previous owners had actually terraced the property. So for about 2 months of the year, sun doesn't touch our soil, but it does touch the top of some of our plants.
Can you grow food all year round in this cool, temperate garden?
You absolutely can. It's so amazing. Like, we learned really quickly that there are so many food plants that are actually adapted to shady, cool conditions.
And what are some of the plants that are surprising that you can grow here?
Tomatoes, because that's one of the really traditional ones that everyone thinks needs a lot of heat, a lot of sun. For us, we've managed to experiment and get different varieties, and we've got some sitting up there right now.
Called Lady Elizabeth. It was cultivated on the eastern shore by a tomato grower, and it has been the most successful tomato for us. It's still growing in our orchard. It's one of the few we can actually grow in the ground rather than in a raised bed or pot.
And you grow a lot of climbing plants here, including this beautiful passion fruit.
Yeah, we sure do. We were really lucky that after the first year, we understood how the sun travelled across our site. So we knew that plants like the passion fruit, they needed more sun in winter to get ripened fruit. If we actually grew them so they reached higher for the sun, so on a trellis or this bit of wire, we can actually get fruit ripening around July, August.
It's so impressive because a lot of people in cool temperate areas won't even attempt to grow passion fruit, especially if they're on a south-facing slope. So well done, you are nailing it.
Thank you.
Another success is berries. They grow 20 different varieties throughout the property.
Our favourite here is the kerry berry, and this is a really special berry because it's actually evergreen. It doesn't lose its leaves, and it fruits in the coldest parts of the season.
And what do they taste like?
So they taste like a mix between a raspberry and a blackberry. So here's a really overripe one for you, Hannah.
Amazing.
And
cheers.
Cheers. Sweeter.
I'm getting essence of strawberry as well.
Oh, nice. I love how people taste things differently. Yeah.
Oh, that is so divine.
So, like, you can put these in jams, in milkshakes. I just forage daily on these.
And it's not just plants that are thriving in your garden. You've got some beautiful poultry as well.
We have chickens and we also have quail because it actually helps us have eggs year round. We also have a mulch layer in both our quail pen and our chicken coop. In our chicken coop, we'll use that usually once or twice a year to top up our raised beds. But in the quail coop, we quite regularly harvest their mulch and we can put that directly around plants.
The couple have worked hard to create microclimates for tender plants. While generally thought of as a warm climate plant, Lisa's Tamarillo is sheltered from wind and frost by the hen house and the quail coop.
We've got two varieties, the red and the orange, and we actually found by planting it in the shadiest spot in our garden but against a fence that blocked the frost, like the brassicas and our broad beans will taste so much sweeter with a bit of frost, we'll plant them there. A lot of plants will have sugars that will only actually come out and be in the leaves once they get a little bit of frost.
Lisa and Anthony use this greenhouse to protect frost-tender plants such as chilies and pawpaws over winter and to get seedlings started. Something surprising for me is seeing a white sapote behind you right now, which looks pretty happy.
We nurtured it, slowly adapting it from being inside the house to the greenhouse to outside in a pot, repotting it, and then it's finally gone into the ground and now survives winter and keeps all its leaves.
And next door to that, you've got some citrus, which is also looking quite happy.
And I think the Satsuma mandarin's probably the really good example of that. And it's not a big fruit, but it's still something that's come from Japan, and it's suited to that really cold climate.
And I really love the Tahitian lime. That was my biggest surprise.
Too many limes is a nice problem to have, I think. Lemons are a little bit easier to get.
You've got so much fruit here, whether it's on trees or vines. What do you do with it all?
We preserve, a lot of pickling and dehydrating, a lot of swapping as well. So there's things we cannot grow here, corn and pumpkins being one of them. And also we don't grow an awful lot of really big brassicas like cauliflowers. So it's really nice to be able to swap the fruit for things you can't grow.
And what are some of the things that you've been able to grow here, which has taken a while to master?
We just mastered carrots, you see. It took 9 years and we got a carrot crop.
Yeah, respect.
Yeah, I mean...
Other ways to cope with the cold and shade is to plant perennial crops that naturally become dormant over winter, like yukon, a South American tuberous vegetable that can be harvested after the plant dies back.
Oh, and that's our first yukon. Oh, look at this! Oh, that one is gold. That's the harvest we wanted.
Do you have anything you want to say to fellow cool, temperate, south-facing, shady gardeners?
You can grow food. So whether it's in a pot or it's in a raised bed or in the soil, you can 100% grow food year-round. Don't be put off. Like, you just need to find a variety that suits your soil and where you are, and you will be eating from your garden.
Should I be concerned when fungi start growing on a tree that's been cut down? Yes, you should. This tree is only 50% gone. The rest is under the soil, and with it are many different types of fungi, which often live completely unseen. This one is Ganoderma. It's one of 3 fungi which are of concern in a garden. The other 2 are Armillaria and Phalinus. Now, they digest the wood, so these will follow the tissue through the root system. There's 20 years' worth of fuel for this fungus to keep growing. And if it meets the roots of susceptible trees and shrubs, it can go from being a digester to an aggressor and cause losses elsewhere in the garden. So you need to remove this source of food for fungi. The job is only half done when you cut down the tree. You need to finish it off and remove the stump.
Some things simply never go out of style. Sophie's looking at a family of plants that are an absolute classic.
Who doesn't love a plant that's low maintenance, looks spectacular in the garden and lasts well in a vase? I'm talking about the ancient Proteaceae family, which includes a whole range of plants largely found in the southern hemisphere. Luckily for gardeners, their colour is often at its brightest in winter. Rugby fans might be familiar with the Protea, while the Waratah is New South Wales' floral emblem. These 2 plants from different continents are actually closely related because millions of years ago they were both part of the supercontinent Gondwanaland. That's probably why florists often include South African plants in native bunches. Let's start with the South African Protea. There's lots of variation in this plant. They come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and are characterised by their dramatic large flowers in a range of colours from white to red. Any wonder the name Protea originates from the Greek god Proteas, who assumed many different forms. This variety is called polar blush and it grows 1.5 to 2 metres high. It's only in bud at the moment, but when the flowers open, they're an amazing pink colour with this beautiful white feathered tip on each of the petals. When pruning Proteas, only remove the stems that are flowered this year because the unflowered stems will flower for you the following year. The next group of plants I want to show you may not have flowers that are quite as dramatic, but they make up for it with spectacular foliage. These striking South African plants are leucadendrons. They come in a range of glorious colours, from reds and golds through pinks, purples to silver, and range between 1 and 2 metres high. I love these plants because the colour and form of their foliage looks great all year round. And because they come in a range of sizes, you can choose miniature varieties for growing in pots. These South African plants also make great cut flowers. They're called leucospermums, and they produce the most amazing pincushion-like heads of flowers in warm shades from yellow and orange through to red. The plants grow 1.5 to 2 metres high, and the birds love their flowers too. This lesser-known South African plant is called orlax or featherbush. It grows to about 1.5 metres high, and this form, which is called cancellata, produces beautiful, fluffy yellow flowers in clusters in springtime. It's great as a cut flower, and it's also loved by the birds. Other members of the Proteaceae family are well-known Aussie favourites, such as Banksias, Waratahs, Hakeas, Macadamias and Grevilleas. And this lovely Adenanthus, commonly known as the woolly bush, which can sometimes reach up to 5 metres in height. There are dwarf forms of woolly bush available, like this beautiful one with its silver foliage, or this form which has got a bronze hue. Now, both forms produce tiny little orangey red flowers on and off for most of the year, and these flowers are loved by the birds. Both the Australian and South African varieties require similar growing conditions. They prefer a sunny spot with well-drained, slightly acidic soil that's low in phosphorus. They're really hardy plants, having evolved over millions of years to tolerate low nutrient soils, but they're sensitive to phosphorus. So make sure you position them away from other plants that require regular fertiliser. If you're going to grow one in a pot, choose a dwarf variety, like this Adenanthus bronze glow. It gets to about 1.5 metres. Now, the best time to pot them up is in the cooler weather, between autumn and spring. And when choosing a pot, don't overpot, because we want the plant to dry out between watering so it doesn't get root rot. Going up 1 or 2 pot sizes is ideal. Make sure you use a low phosphorus native plant potting mix. If you've got a sunny, well-drained position that could do with some interesting flowers and foliage, the Proteaceae family is for you. They're hardy, low-maintenance, low-water use plants, which provide interesting colour and texture all year round, with the added bonus of giving you cut flowers as well.
Still to come on Gardening Australia, Clarence visits an Indigenous-owned and run nursery. Millie's just warming up in the cold weather. And we've got all the jobs for your to-do list this weekend. We're back in Peter Hayes' nursery because aside from his unique hybrid Clivias, aka Clivias, he's also fascinated by rare and unusual plants. Most of these beauties I've only seen at rare plant shows. Things like Epiphyllum curly sue, Euphorbia flanaganii, and Ligularia. Look at the detail in these different plants. Everywhere I look, there's something different. How'd you get into this?
Once you're interested in one genus Costa, then you become more and more interested in the way it goes. Look at the speckles of sunlight coming through the foliage.
Yeah.
As if it's a tree above.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, really pretty.
Peter, I'm running out of battery because there is so much quirky, kooky kind of stuff.
Forest lily, Velthemia bracteata, the bicolour, and a variegated lemon flame. Fairly unusual. This year, I'm going to cross the two, so we're going to have variegated bicolour.
There's no stopping you.
I know. I love it. I love it.
But what Peter's promised me,
Battery charger?
yeah, I think so, is a masterclass on cactus grafting.
Oh.
Look at the spiral.
Yeah,
That's
pretty
amazing.
Good. Better one down here.
You've got such a range of cacti, all different shapes and sizes. What's the trick for grafting them?
That's pretty straightforward, very interesting, very satisfying. This one's ready to go.
Yeah.
Would you like to see one?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay, let's do it.
Take it right. If you're going to try it at home, wait for the warmer months. Take a sharp, sterile knife
And I'm wiping that at both sides.
and choose a rootstock.
Okay, so what I've got to do is I've got a slight slicing action.
Like any grafting, your rootstock cactus wants to be something hardy and dependable.
Leave it in place.
When they're cut, keep them covered to keep bacteria out. Choose a scion
Cutting.
that you'll graft onto the rootstock, something fun.
There we go.
And make a cut through the scion that, as closely as possible, matches the one on the rootstock.
And we leave that in place.
A flat cut is fine.
Slide off. And then put it on. And what I do is fairly important is to squeeze it down a bit.
Yeah.
The secret is try and keep the pressure even.
Peter uses old pressure stockings to secure the plants together gently but firmly to the spikes.
Right, so job's done.
To help the graft succeed, keep the plant out of the weather and give it more than the usual water. If compatible and well secured, the cacti will graft firmly and thrive, just like Peter's. It's inspiring to meet a gardener who takes on and accomplishes so much. Yet still hungers to do more. All gardeners know being around plants is a rich and rewarding experience. And you don't need to engage as deeply as Peter does. But when you do, you'll open up worlds within worlds, and you won't look back.
Jane, what's the best bit of garden advice you've ever received?
Start small. Start with a hanging basket. If you've never had a garden before, just start small. Little pot of herbs or a hanging basket with nice indoor plants bulging out of it, then you'll get the knack.
For me, it's similar advice. I had a great friend, a great organic gardener and a master grafter, and I used to always ask him, you know, when's the perfect time to do this? When's the perfect time to do that? And he would always say, whenever you have time, Millie. And it was such a lesson in just giving it a go, not aiming for perfection.
Yeah, it's good.
Well, mine's fairly simple. It's don't get into orchids. It's too expensive.
From an orchid grower, no doubt.
Plants give us so much, and with the right opportunities, they can even offer careers. Clarence is visiting an Indigenous-owned and run nursery that's growing skills and jobs for the community and bringing local plants back into cultivation for everyone.
Our landscape was once the only source of everything we needed, from the bounty of the sea to tucker from the bush. And in some instances, that knowledge is just a distant memory. But today, I'm meeting a man who's on a mission to change all that. As a boy, Peter Cooley learned how to live off this land on the southeastern coastline of Sydney from his Bidjigal elders. When we're in La Perouse, part of Keme, Botany Bay. G'day, Pete.
Hey, Clarence, how are you?
Good, brother. Good to see you, man.
Oh, that's good, mate.
Keme, Botany Bay. And this is all Bidjigal land?
It is, mate, yeah. All traditional country for me. Spent a lot of time as a child with families up in this area here, connecting to the ocean and having a good feed on the rocks.
So what do you remember most about learning from the elders?
Oh, just being able to go around the rocks, identify or collect what we could that we could eat and what we couldn't eat, accessing it at the right time, particularly low tide when we could walk around and food would be exposed.
And that knowledge base would have extended into the bush too, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, on the coast, we have the best of both worlds, I suppose. We've got the ocean and the bush. So, yeah, definitely plant knowledge as well as a kid.
Especially the bush here, like the sandstone, it's just iconic, but the plant species and the ecology are so unique.
Absolutely. Our eastern suburbs Banksy scrub here, our coastal plants, you don't find a lot of these species anywhere else. They're just unique to the coast and they're very important as well to us as Aboriginal people on the coast.
And what are some of the key learnings that you got from the elders here?
You know, just some of the plants you could eat, particularly our bush food ones. You know, we've got bush lollies like geebungs and dianella berries and some of the medicine plants like, you know, we've got smilax here, we've got coastal tea tree and that, which are important parts of this, I suppose, really rugged area where our plants have adapted to really poor conditions. You'll notice when you walk the coastline, our plants are very low-growing plants, and that's from those, you know, really harsh conditions, strong winds on the coast.
Pete, life took a bit of a turn after growing up in paradise.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to make a living, so I ended up taking on a trade in diesel mechanics, and at the time, who knew I would spend 20 years underneath earth-moving equipment and big trucks and, you know, all that heavy work. Things have a shelf life, and I didn't want to do the trade anymore. I felt there was something missing, and, you know, for me, that was community and it was connection to, you know, our country here. And that's where I set up a project called Indigigrow.
How does the work you're doing at Indigigrow relate to this plant community?
Well, it has a direct relationship because, you know, we've had a connection to our lands here through our plants for thousands of years. And now it's about getting our young people on board, teaching them about the plants and then teaching them how to grow them. And that's what we do in the nursery.
Nice spot. Peter set up 2 nurseries in the area, both focusing on local native plants. And Gavin is the manager here at La Perouse. Great setup. What's the process to get to where we're looking at now?
Basically grow the local critically endangered species, but we also incorporate into native bush foods also.
Yeah.
We also do go out in the bushland and source cutting material and also collect native seeds. So then when we bring them back, we propagate them. Once they take root, then we put them in the shade house for a couple of weeks, and then we bring them out to the actual climate where they tend to start thriving.
Harden them up a bit.
Yeah.
So how many plants are you holding at any one time? There must be a fair bit of stock here.
There's a lot of stock. I mean, we do tend to grow a lot more than what we can hold.
So focusing a lot on those local species that are...
Yeah. Trying to get them to plant it back in the community here. Yeah, and trying to support biodiversity and wildlife.
Hey, Jay.
Hey, Clarence, how are you?
I'm good, mate. Hey, Pete tells me you're one of the managers here at Indigigrow.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to manage the wholesale nursery up at Matraville Sports High, and I've been at Indigigrow for about 4 years now.
What got you into this in the first place?
I mean, I was always kind of into my native plants. Like, I liked my lizards and snakes and that, so I liked making little terrariums and stuff with them, but my last job was just doing landscaping, lawn mowing and all that. Yeah, and I was lucky enough to start 2 days a week, and I've worked my way up to manager in 4 years, and...
Very nice.
Yeah, I've done 2 courses as well, so it's been really interesting. Obviously, everyone knows stuff like your pig's face and your lamandra and dianellas and that, but that was pretty much the extent of my knowledge. So coming out onto country and learning like from some of the aunties and uncles too is actually really nice, and it just adds that extra factor of like wow factor into the plants, and you don't realise how much of it is actually still here on bush.
So you've taken a real shine and a big interest in eastern suburbs Banksia scrub?
Yeah, I have. I mean, it's on my country, you know, it's who I am as a person, but in community as well. You can see there's a lot of ESBS plants that are still very important to us today. Like you got the lamandra that we use for our weaving, seed for damper and stuff like that. Dianella berries for dyeing stuff, colours purple.
A lot of the stuff you're able to go out into the eastern suburbs Banksia scrub and, you know, collect seed and things like that?
Yeah, we're very lucky enough to go out on country here out at La Perouse and collect a lot of that seed. We've got a nice relationship with the National Park.
What are some of your favourites?
Like the heath myrtle or Bayechia imbricata is like one of my favourite local ones at the moment because it gets the flowers all the way up the plant, nice white little flowers. And I find they've got a nice little aromatic smell to them too when you crush the leaves and that up. Yeah. You've got some lovely stuff like your 10 corners. So they're a nice little ground cover plant. They produce a lovely little berry and a tubed-like flower, multicoloured, so it's like a yellow and red. They're really nice, quite spiky, but a good food source for the animals and us as well. Yeah. We've got some stuff like your flannel flowers. They add a nice kind of pop of colour into the garden and into the bush. One thing here at Indigigrow we like to try and put back into the community is the 5 corners plant, or Stiphelia. Yeah. I really like those. Those are grown on me as well. I like the flowers, the taste of the fruit. Just the whole lot of it just appeals to me as a person.
Indigenous nurseries around the country are helping save endangered plants and providing opportunities for young people to work towards preserving our native ecology. Check them out where you live. Peter, this is so impressive. How does it make you feel?
Oh, look, I'm just really, really proud of what we've been able to achieve here, sort of providing the opportunities for our young people, being able to give them a job, working on country, but more importantly, working with our traditional plants on country. So for me, I'm extremely proud about being able to do that. Plants are a connector. It doesn't matter your gender, your background, your age. It connects everyone.
What's the best medicine for a cold and frosty morning? Bit of hard work, of course. Out in the garden, getting the blood pumping and the body moving again. Oh, take it away, Millie.
Months in a cool climate can be pretty bracing. It's taken me a bit of time to get used to them. And we have months of hard frosts. We've got top temperatures below about 10 degrees for days on end. And of course, we get more than our fair share of drizzle. But given these cool seasons last, well, more than 6 months of the year, you've got to love them. And I've got plenty to do. For me, this time of the year is a bit of a tightrope walk. The balance between my maintenance gardener-trained brain wanting to tidy up and clear things away, and all of those benefits of leaving things where they are. So in this garden bed, for example, there's lots of things that are really past their best, and I would be tempted to cut them back and tidy them up. Take this Muhlenbeckia. Now, truthfully, I sort of regret planting this. I wanted it to form a really fast-growing and dense evergreen cover, but to do that, it needs a lot more maintenance than I'm willing to give it. Really, to look at its best, I should really be pruning it right now, and more times through the growing months. But what I have observed with this plant is the little birds love it. There's actually a nest in this mess of stems, and I've noticed all the small birds land on the fence, check out the garden before coming into it. So even though the plant is really not doing the job for me, it is doing the job in other ways. I'm going to leave these for later. I've actually become really obsessed with evergreen shrubs and trees since living in this climate, because it was once a Banksia woodland here, but now, after so much European influence, the gardens are full of deciduous plants. Of course, they're great for shading in summer and letting the sun in winter, and some of them produce incredible autumn colour. But what they can't do is provide shelter to the birds when they need it. So late winter, early spring, they're looking for nesting sites and they need somewhere to hide. Of course, native plants are an obvious evergreen choice. I've planted lots of things like this tea tree, which is fast growing, really dense foliage and can be clipped into a hedge. And this Elaeagnus has actually been a bit of a surprise. I bought this as a prop for a shoot years ago, and like so many plants, it just gets plonked in anywhere, stuffed down in this corner next to the compost. And as you can see, it's a pretty amazing plant. It grows in every direction. I think it actually could end up being a bit of a thug, but it does respond really well to pruning. Some people do hedge this plant. And of course, this dense cover of foliage is quite useful. And then just this year, it started flowering as well. I smelt these well before I saw them, which means they are absolutely packed full of nectar. I reckon this plant is a bit of an unexpected win in this cold climate garden. It's giving great shelter and lots of nectar for the birds. I reckon it gets to stay. When it comes to evergreens, there is always room for another correa in any garden that I'm involved with. While I'm at it, why not another? While I'm obsessed with evergreens, I definitely know that this time of the year is the best time to put deciduous trees in the ground. And I've got a really special one that is well overdue planting. It's actually a peach tree that I grew from seeds, given to me by a gardener many years ago. Now, I had a successful crop of seedlings and I've distributed them all over the state. I've got friends growing this particular variety. But this wonky old tree, I've still got it in this root pruning pot. So today I want to get it in the ground. Both nectarines and peaches are really marginal in this cold climate, so I've chosen a warm and sheltered spot. They're also particularly fussy about drainage, so in my heavy clay soil, I'm mounding it up with added compost to make sure the water can drain away. I can't say this is my best work. The truth is I gave the straighter, better trees away, but I'm still keen to get this in the ground and see how it goes. Now, I've got this growing in what's known as a root pruning pot, and these little holes around the side mean that if the roots get to the edge, they actually just die off and branch. So it should have a reasonably healthy root system, even though it's been growing in a pot. You can see it's a little bit dry, but these roots are actually really quite healthy. There's lots of young roots there, so I'm going to flip it over and take the base plate off. And it might feel a bit brutal, but when you're buying a bare root tree at this time of the year, it's literally been wrenched out of the soil. It has very few roots on it. So I am going to root prune this. So you can see that these are actually quite fibrous young roots. It hasn't circled around, which is fantastic. So what I want to do is further prune it. So I'm just gently using this fantastic Japanese serrated knife and just cutting away, I don't know, about an inch of the root system all around. And then I'm going to slice the bottom off like a piece of bread. You can see that I haven't really dug a deep hole here because to do that would be like digging a bucket of death for this tree. because I want it to drain, I'm instead sitting it almost on the surface. I've excavated a little bit around the edge, so it's actually hopefully going to grow some roots out wide, and then I'll mound that soil up to cover the root system. When it comes to pruning and shaping this tree, I'm, a little bit puzzled. When you get a stick from the nursery bare root, it's usually quite simple. You'll see some really clear points to make it shoot. And pruning at this time of the year will absolutely get a growth response. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to thin it out and take the top out of the tree. And then next year, I'll be able to choose from some of that responded growth and really start to build the framework. I'll also take out anything that's kind of congesting in the middle to open up the inside of the tree. Pruning at this time of the year is actually quite obvious in that buds that are dormant along a stem will show you what direction they're going to point in. So when you remove the tip, which is the dominant bud, you should push the energy down into the next bud that you prune to, and that should shoot in the direction the bud is facing. End up going too far. All right, walk away now. I'm going to see how it responds, and hopefully this little stick will grow into a fantastic, delicious, beautiful, homegrown peach tree. Actually, I'm just going to take the whole centre out, and we'll see what happens. I reckon the only way to beat the winter blues is to go outside and get to work in the garden. And there is so much to do. Lots of jobs, of course, but also a beautiful opportunity to see your garden from a different perspective, celebrate that decay and observe everything that's going on. Your garden, if you look, can really surprise you. Who knows? That peach, it might even live.
Now that your blood's pumping, keep it up by diving into your jobs for the weekend. In cool temperate gardens, grab a hard bristled broom, white vinegar and water and clean grubby pavers. Dilute the vinegar 1 part to 10, apply to pavers and get scrubbing. Chop and propagate tree dahlias as they finish flowering. Cut canes into 50cm lengths, lay them in a shallow trench and cover with soil. The canes will root and shoot, giving you even more delightful dahlias. Try your hand at a curious citrus, the Buddha's hand citron. Often used in religious ceremonies, the lumpy multi-fingered fruits will fill your house and garden with the most divine citrus fragrance. In warm temperate areas, calendulas are winter winners. Excellent at attracting beneficial insects, the showy orange flowers are also edible and add gorgeous, tasty colour to a salad. In pots or plots, sow some fast-growing fenugreek. As microgreen or in the garden, this herb has a sweet curry flavour and is great as a green manure, cover crop or indoor edible. Sure, it's winter, but there's no better time to plan for warm season veggies. Find a sunny section of garden and start a compost heap for sowing melons and pumpkins come spring. Camellia japonicas are coming into bloom in the subtropics. Visit a botanic garden or walk your neighbourhood to make a note of those you fancy before you head to the nursery. Strawberries are starting to ripen, so keep fruit dry and off the ground by applying a fresh layer of straw mulch. Chicken wire popped over plants will prevent critters from consuming fruit before you do. You can have your flowers and eat them too. Sow Cosmos sulphureus now, a tough self-seeding annual with showy edible flowers and foliage, perfect in stir-fries and the garden. Gardeners in the tropics, if you've struggled to keep greens going, plant a sweet potato. The foliage of this hardy, starchy staple is edible and a tasty alternative to traditional greens. It's time to get ginger into the ground at your place. Find a sheltered spot with rich, moist soil and drop in some fresh, healthy rhizomes. You'll be rocking this root in no time. For a splash of cool season colour, pop in a golden candle plant, Pachystaceous lutea. These bushy shrubs with their unusual showy golden bracts put on a ripper winter display. Arid-loving, aromatic, attractive and tough as, find space for Greek horehound, Balota pseudodictymus. The soft silver foliage complements other perennial plantings perfectly. Tip prune natives once winter flowering is finished, removing spent flowers and a couple of centimetres from each branch. This will see shrubs become dense and bushy before the summer heat hits. Water straight from the tank or tap can be too chilly for the delicate roots of many indoor plants, so it's a great idea to treat them to room temperature or tepid water over winter. Have a ripper weekend, gardeners, and remember to head to the Gardening Australia website for detailed fact sheets from all of tonight's great stories. Well, that's it for this time, friends, but we've already sown the seeds for next week. Here's what's growing.
The eucalypt has to be one of the most iconic and, of course, important species in the natural landscape. But in a garden, they can dominate. So I'm going to show you some of the very best species to plant to help you grow a garden under gums.
And I'm meeting Dr. Tom Crowett. He's sharing tales from a lifetime of learning about a fascinating plant family, the Araceae, which includes popular garden favourites like philodendrons and anthuriums. So what anthurium is this, Tom?
This is Anthurium colonicum from Panama. It was one that I described a number of years ago.
Of course you did.
And I'm taking you into the diverse world of conifers and showing you some beautiful specimens from abroad. And for something closer to home, we've got the really distinctive Australian native conifers.